Welcome to the Startup Field Guide, where we learn from successful founders of unicorn startups how their companies truly found product market fit. I'm your host, Sandhya Hegde, and today we will be diving into the story of Solo. Solo is an open source developer platform designed to connect applications with service meshes across any software infrastructure. So, their core promise to their customers is to help them migrate from 10, 20-year-old legacy monolithic applications to new cloud native architectures with APIs and microservices. Last valued at $1 billion, Solo has hundreds of customers, including enterprises like T-Mobile, American Express, SAP, Sumo Logic, and more. Welcome to the Field Guide, Edith.
And thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's really exciting to have you here. So, going back to 2017, which is when you started Solo, I believe
Mhm.
you were at Dell EMC. Could you share with us the story of how Solo was born?
Yeah. So honestly, this solo story is starting a little bit before EMC. So most of my life, I was in a startup company. That's what I like. That's what I was doing all my life. But I was in the company that was before EMC. I decided to leave and I really wanted to extract. Everybody told me like, you should open something. You should open something. And I basically, in that point, understood that I'm not ready. And this is very unique because I think that definitely in Israel, and I wasn't in Israel, I was here in Boston, but
Right.
in Israel, a lot of people getting out of the army and immediately starting a company. They don't know much, they don't see the ground, they don't know, but they're starting a company. So I think that I felt that if I'm starting it, I really want to make sure that it will be successful. And
Right.
therefore, I actually felt that before making this move and starting it, I need to figure out how it is to be in a big company because just if in the future I would want to get acquired or work with them, or how is that going to look on the other side? And I didn't have any experience before that on this. So I live in Boston. My husband is the reason we're here is my husband was back then professor in Harvard. So I knew that I cannot leave. That's the place that I can do. It was
Right.
pre-COVID, so working from home wasn't the thing that people were doing. And therefore, I decided to look for a CTO. That was my dream to become a CTO that I can learn from. So I
Mm,
basically Googled big company that are CTO offices in Boston, and I found one, which was EMC. And
got
that's
it.
why basically I went and said to EMC. So the purpose of me, like on the interview, I was interviewed by John Rose, who is the global CTO today of all Dell. And I basically said to him, I'm coming to you for 2 years to learn everything, and then I'm going to start my own company. And I remember that he was saying, interesting. Okay, then. And that's basically what I did. So I came there and honestly, I did learn a lot. And I learned mainly of how is that working on the other side. And I had no clue, I will be honest. I was very naive back then, was very surprised. And I learned also that how to pitch, how to sell my ideas in an organization like EMC. Definitely, if you're a CTO, your job is to influence. You don't have
Right.
actually people reporting to you. So you need to know how to do that. And I think that's actually, I became pretty good at this when I was there. And then Dell got acquired, like EMC acquired Dell. And in that one, I decided that it's a great time. It was just about 2.5 years. And I said, it's a great time, actually. And therefore, I decided to start it solo. So in the beginning, in EMC itself, I was doing a lot of open source stuff. That was what I was pushing. I was knowing this the community very well. And my job in EMC was to make noise, to position her as a leader, not to specifically sell anything, which is very different than open a startup. So I did some open source project that created quite a lot of noise. I was stopping in almost every conferences, and people knew me in the ecosystem of the CNCF on the
Mm,
Kubernetes network area. And therefore, in the beginning, I said, okay, I'm going to start a company, but of course, I didn't think of leaving EMC first. I had three little kids. It was like I need first to see how I'm getting paid. And I did try to pitch some of this VC, and I will be honest. First of all, we are in Boston, which is not usually a very popular place to start an infrastructure startup
right.
and cloud native. This is not what usually you can see here. And the second thing is that honestly, I had no clue how to do it. I will be very blunt. Like I met someone because it was with my, he knew me from the previous startup that I was,
Right.
and it
Right.
was my something like that. And then I said to him, okay, I want to start a company. What should I do? He said, you should prepare a pitch deck. And I said, what does it mean? It seriously was like the most coolest that you can imagine. But when I understood that what I need to do, I started doing it and I actually got a lot of interest. The problem was that I was still in EMC. And we have people that don't know that maybe, oh, I didn't know it definitely, is that if they putting money on you, they want to see that you are committed. And if you're staying in the other company, you're not committed, right? You're not showing that you're all in. That's when I make a decision with my husband that I actually going to leave the company. It was very scared, very small kids, and three of them, very crowded, three of them. My husband was running through tenure in Harvard. It wasn't really, was a little bit crazy, honestly. And I decided to leave. And honestly, I came to my boss and I basically said to him, John, I think it's time. And he actually was very nice. And he basically gave me the package because anyway, they were about, it was supposed to let someone else and go. And he basically gave me the package. I said, awesome. I have 3 months pay. And I think my husband said to me, you know what? You have 6 months to get money. Good luck. And that's what I went, right? So 6 months money. I know that's what I have. I can't afford more than this in Don. Right? So that's all I can. And that's what I did. And it wasn't easy. I want to be very clear. It wasn't easy at all. I thought, oh, I'm like, I'm already winning now. I will be able to get money pretty easy. No, I'd already open source. I created another open source to show them that I capable of it. Didn't really work. And I think that actually the main pushback, definitely in Boston area, was where's your business person? Okay, you're a technology. We know you're brilliant technology. That's fine. Where is your business person? And I said, why would I bring a business person? That doesn't make any sense. I need to build the product first. What is this guy will do? We'll sit down and look how I'm doing it. It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of money. I will bring someone, but I will attract better person after I will have the market fit. So let me first build it, get some open source excitement, then I will bring the person. And I think that was honestly like a big pushback, definitely in Boston. I remember that they just me some founder that potentially I can pair with them. I decided that this is not the right thing, and I decided to basically go look it for in California, where it's more likely to actually be accepted. And don't forget that in Boston back then, I think there was 2 or 3 star BC anyway. All that was a lot to talk to. So in that point, I basically went to California, tried to look for, and honestly didn't get. It was very disappointing. I learned a lot, but it was very disappointing. And there was a lot of people. It wasn't disrespectful. It wasn't the very easy smooth. But then what happened is that I got to the point that I'm done with my 6 months. That's it. And my husband basically said to me, okay, that's your last chance. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the money that I left with. I'm going to fly again to California. And you remember, not only I'm not getting money, I'm paying for all this stuff, right? I'm going to go to California and I'm going to do the last thing. Like that's the last time that otherwise I have to find a job. And basically that's what I did. And at that time I already understood way better how to do this. What pitch mean? What are we doing? Where are we selling? Move a little bit the vision because I understood that's not what the VC wanted. It's very important. Also, what is the trending that the VC want? And then basically I just understood that people were looking to specifically there was excitement about serverless. So I just basically come with a very nice speech of serverless. And basically, with that, I did that role. Actually, it was, I knew already it went well, but also, like, when I came back, I said to my husband, if anybody will offer me, I really hope it will be pretty come true. And that's all I want. I kept excited that when we met, it was clear that this is meant to be. And I was right because immediately he basically offered me immediately. He basically said, I got others, but I knew that I wanted to need, so that wasn't an issue. And basically, I think that they asked me if I'm willing to go to California. And said, no, I'm willing to do whatever, who knows. But now I think it's the right place to be here. Hire here will be simple. In Boston, there's so many university and honestly nothing very interesting happening here anyway. So it's actually a good opportunity to do that. And that's what I did. So I basically got this. I had someone that was like 2 days. It's like a partner to me. And it was clear that immediately he's going to join. And basically we started building the company. He was an engineer, our chief architect today. So that's basically how it's so long story is how we started.
Amazing. And sounds like that was like the inspiration for your company name as well.
Yes. So in one point I needed to find a name to the company. We played with a lot of names. And every time I said, what if we will call it this? And we look and check. Oh, it's already taken. And then we say, oh, what about this one? Check it. And then at that point I said, stupid idea. What I really need to do to basically see what available and choose the one that I like the most. And then I left and I saw it and it was Solo.io. And I love O's. All my kids' name is O's. And I like the idea that it's if you're hiding the S, it's basically 010101. So I really like that geek
Nice.
ID. And I said, that's it. That's what I want. And I took, I think it was like 4,000, 4K or something like that. And basically said, that's the name. And I put it. And, and I remember that the first reaction of my husband said to me, are you kidding me? That's the worst name ever. And I said, why is that? And he said to me, everybody telling you that you cannot go by yourself and you're basically calling yourself solo. Are you kidding me? And I said, exactly. That's why I'm going to do that. And basically it was actually like, despite the VC who told me that I need a partner,
Right.
there was even more complex because otherwise actually the IT wasn't available. And and what happened is that they were looking for it and looking for it and reach out to the people that potentially has that, and they weren't answering. So they were about to give me the money back and say to me, sorry. And I'm like, oh my God, now I really invested in that name. So I basically go and figure out myself, where is this person? I reached out to him and he actually sold it to me. I think we're like $400 or something like that. So I actually got the money back from them. That was a good.
Awesome. And do you
Yeah.
remember how many investor meetings you did to raise
Mhm.
that first 2.5 million seed round that you did in 2017?
Yeah. So I think actually our sit round was a little bit more. I think that I would explain what happened. So first of all, the answer is a lot. I was again, I wasn't aware of how it's working, right? So there's like brand new, so a lot of mistakes being made. One of the mistake is that I thought that if everybody will see that there is a lot of interest in my company, they actually will want to invest more. So I
Hmm.
actually will open the calendar and show them, here's all the business that I'm meeting with. And I'm like, and then basically someone doesn't know that you don't want your VC to, you don't want VC to talk between yourself. It's actually, usually it's going to, no one will want to invest in you at that point. I didn't know that. So I made those mistakes. And as I said, I needed to pivot the idea in the middle. And
Right.
basically, so I think that, I don't know, like I will say maybe probably 30, my guess. Maybe that. Yeah. But the last five will first, maybe 24, I
Right.
will say. Yeah.
So you figured out really fast what is it that you need to do to get this seed round done, even though you not hadn't really had exposure to this whole fundraising process before. I think honestly, I've been guilty of giving folks the same feedback, right? Which is you don't
Yeah.
want to be a solo technical founder. It's really hard. And the reality is like no matter how you approach it, building a company is so hard. And the thing that I really take away from your story is just how relentless you were. Like there was
Yeah.
none of this was easy. And you hadn't even built a product and started working with customers yet. And you already had to overcome so many hurdles to get here. Honestly, there's no better training for the founder experience. This is
Yeah,
what
you
it
learn
feels
quite
like.
a lot. Yeah, quite a lot of this for sure.
And maybe pivoting a little bit to your founding insight. When we talk about product market fit at Unusual, often what we'll say is the seed is always usually a technical insight, right? Like you have some idea of a change that has happened in terms of what your end customers need or a new technology that is available to be leveraged that will have a massive impact on how software is developed if you're an infra founder. What was that core technical insight that you started with? And if you look back today, is that still the foundation
Mhm.
of Solo and what you're doing, or has it evolved over time?
So honestly, just to be fair, when I started the company, I knew I wanted to start a company. There weren't the technical thing that I wanted to fix. I knew that I could do it better. I think that what I learned from other companies, if it's startup or it's the big company, is that I felt that there is a lot of inefficiency. I felt that there is a lot of people that are very good and technical, and there is a lot
Right.
of they are being slowed down, let's call it, by
Mm,
politics and other stuff. So if you ask me when I started the company, what I wanted to be to take those engineers that are brilliant and just be
right.
surrounded by them and just have a lot of fun with the technology. That was the purpose. So when I went and pitched the first one, honestly, I had one idea. It wasn't idea. It was like open source that we already done. We knew that there is
Right.
excitement starting with this. Feedback that I got was that everybody care about serverless. I personally did not think that you should make a company on serverless. I felt that it's way too early. I felt that
Mm,
I didn't think that's going to be a market fit, but that's what
mm,
people wanted to hear. So what I did is honestly pitch what they wanted to hear, but it was
mm,
very clear to me that's not what I'm going to build in a company. So I got the
mm.
money as a serverless company. And when I got the money, I said, okay, now let's look at the market. What is really
Right.
missing here? And
Right.
that's really what I did. So the question is, what was missing there? And it was pretty clear that when 2017 is that it was the big things of moving from monolithic to microservice. That's what everybody was doing. It was like very exciting to everybody to do this. It was clear to me that by doing this, we're solving already a lot of problems. If you look at all the tooling that was around the place, it's Kubernetes, there is the container and a lot of other stuff
Right.
that basically putting, that was already the place. But when I looked at, first of all, how to help to migrate, it was clear to me that because it's a new stack, it will give us an opportunity to basically to reinvent the networking stack. And perfect fit to what we are building right now, which is more container, way more scalability, and that we needed to do before. So I knew that this is something that that will be a good kind of like refresh in the market that I can go and basically build. And honestly, to be fair, it's not that different than today. If you look at today, from a lot of reasons, and I can explain why we were doing it in a fantastic way to like reinvent the container computing ecosystem and so on. We did not, we are still using very old API gateways with active Cassandra's cluster. So we basically are running microservices, but we're managing with this like monster monolithic that being
Right.
extended and the communication between this. And so there's a lot of inefficiency of how we're doing this in today in organization. So that was what I tried to fix. And
Right.
there's always, when you're doing this, there's the early adopters. There was the market and there was immediately a lot of people who consume the open source project. And I can say that that right now it's just the time that it came to actually the enterprise. Not right now. The early
Right.
adopter, the customer.
And who would you say were kind of your design partners, like your very early adopters who helped you frame the product strategy, figure out what it is that, especially given what you're doing, there's so much surface area to cover, right? Like you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
how did you, what were the early kind of big prioritization decisions you made on what's the minimum viable product Solo needs to build? And who are the people, who are the early customers who helped you like make those decisions, if you will?
So I'm a big believer in you need to show. So
Mm.
I'm actually not a big fan of going to a customer and talk to them. I'm a big believer in even today, honestly, is if you will ask customer if Ford back then will ask customer, what do you think we should build? Will tell him a faster horse. They're not going to tell them a car. He's not going to tell him a car. So I do believe that actually what I wanted to hear is the problem, but
Right.
I want to come with a solution. I don't want them to
Right.
tell me what
Right.
to build. So back then it was a little bit different. I understood that going to be a big problem and I decided to go and build it. I
Right.
understood that for that there is like this proxy that is very interesting. I saw where the service mesh was released by Google and I was kind of like, look at this, say, wow, that's very interesting. But A, service mesh is going to take years until people will adopt it. And we put adopt it just wasn't even close to ready. It was very early.
Mm.
And B, what I understood is that, as I said to you, so again, I understood that this thing is going to be big, which is called service mesh, whose responsibility to basically connect in the best way I can describe all those microservices, either communication between them or communication that come to them, to the
Right.
cluster. And so I basically said to myself, okay, let's assume that this thing is, I really believe that this thing is will be everywhere. But here is the thing. I'm a startup. I got 3 point. So I took from 2.5 million, but I took another 750 from some other companies just to fill it because we were supposed to get 3 million back then. So I had that $3 million, right? Not a lot of engineering. And I needed basically to figure out what am I doing. And what was clear to me that no, there is not going service mesh. Who will be this thing that everybody will run? It's take years until people will run it. So the
Mm.
question is, what am I doing? I have $3 million. I have them right now. And I can't really come to my investor and tell them, don't worry, 5 years stop and you have the first customer. I just cannot
Right.
do that. So I said to myself, so how am I fixing that problem? And I said, I looked at the service mesh and I understood that in that service mesh, there was one piece that was A, very mature, and B, the hardest one. I thought that it would be the hardest to operate. And that was the proxy.
Mm.
And it's called Envoy proxy. It was actually running already in a Lyft. So Lyft running it already in production in scale and they open source it. And I felt that this is the way this proxy worked is it was suitable to this microservices environment because you can, it's in API driven, it's very it virtually consistent. There's a lot of methodologic that make more sense versus what was popular back then with HA proxy or Nginx. So I said, okay, that's actually really interesting. That's what I should work on this. So here's what I'm going to do. While they're going to work on building the mesh, which would take him a year, I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to figure out how I'm building on top of it, or basically customize that because there was the ability to customize those endpoints. And second of all, where can I apply that it's already a market that I can sell today? And when I look at all the market, it was clear to me that API gateway will be a good one to attack. And the reason is because it was a very mature market. But as I said, while we were changing the world, right, with all this like container and stuff, there's nothing interesting happening in that market. There still was running, as I said, like this like monolithic application with a active customer cluster that you need to manage, very robust and hard to operate. So I said to myself, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that envoy and I'm going to basically build on it an API gateway and control plane for API gateway, and we go after that market. And I think that was probably one of the smartest things that I did because what I understood back then is that this API gateway will be the stepping stone for service mesh. So if I'm already in that account and the people is happy, I will be able to very easily extend it when it will be relevant. And that's what I did. I open source a project called Glue and Glue because it's GLOO, but the idea is to be gluing all those environments together and microservices and monolithic and so on. And we started it, and honestly, pretty much at the beginning, it became very popular because it was really well built and already with some hint of customization of how it's going to work with Lambda and how it was very nice package to be. And again, we just work in community. That's all I wanted in that point, just get the feedback from the user that will try to use that as a simple ingress and not going to give me a dime. That was the first start that we get. So some feedback from the community, but honestly, as I said, it actually did very well. It wasn't the bad, like the official market that we put out there wasn't in a bad shape. And then what's happening is that it was clear that we needed to basically start looking for customers. I remember the first one, and I can tell you that the first one that we got was interesting enough. I remember I came to Yuval, who is my chief out there, and I said to him, okay, I got us a POC. And he said, what? What are you talking about? I will never pass this to POC. We don't even have a product. I said to him, yeah, but we will learn from it a lot. So let's do it. And we did got it. We actually, Smart Shop Routine, which was from Google, right? So we killed this. We were doing so well. So that was the first customer, Vonage, now at Ericsson. And I think that after it, so they helped us a lot to build it. Actually, they were pretty happy, but they gave us a little bit of feedback. But I think what then happened really quickly is that we did all of this with Slack. We had open source Slack, and we basically worked very closely on the customer. And every time that there was someone else that interesting, we'd open a Slack for them. And that's how we got the data. And then we started having way more. So American Express and ADP and Comfax and T-Mobile, like suddenly more and more people start coming, and they are the one that in that point help us tune the product. And I think that was very helpful. So basically in that point, they help us to make the product that it was after. And then once you're getting a lot of success and working very closely with your company and scaling it crazy, honestly, right now, probably people doesn't know, but you're probably using Glue by itself or every time. You just don't know that because it's everywhere and it's in very high scale running and so on. So again, that was basically how the customer helped, but honestly, it happened after, and it was more tweaking versus real change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, especially with enterprise software, you definitely don't want to ask customers, hey, what should we build, right? They will give you feature requests forever, but they will never tell you what's the right product to build. But they're experts in their problem, and you want to focus on making sure you understand their problem and only get feedback on the product vision you have. That makes sense. I think a few follow-up questions for you. One, like your conviction around focusing on the API gateway, what were you looking at? Was that kind of what you had already seen at TMC? What were your data points when you were looking around to say, okay, it's the API gateway?
No, honestly, I'm like, this is the thing. Like a lot of the people told me we should go talk to customer and prospect. Even today, it's always I have a product management today, and they're always telling me, let's go talk to customer. Let's put it in customer. And I said, them, guys, here's the thing. We can't right now go to 3 customers and get feedback for them. But a lot of the time, what we're trying to do, API gateway was already there. There was already Apogee. There was already Con. There was other customers that already were using more the legacy API gateway. And I felt that learning from them, first of all, it's a lot because they talk to hundreds of customers. So I can
Right.
see a little bit. And also, honestly, the internet is full of stories, right? This is the
Right.
beautiful of it. I went to see what Netflix did. I went to see what other people did. And I
Right.
got enough of data to understand what
Right.
people is looking for. And I think
Makes
that
sense.
honestly, so I basically got that data by myself. I didn't
Right.
go to,
Right.
as I said, when I went to the customers was after the fact, right?
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't,
Makes sense. Makes sense. And walk us
yeah.
through the timeline for this. Summer 2017, you start the company. When was it that you had Vonage, Amex? Like, when did you start actually getting your live product? How long did it take for you to
Yeah.
build up to your first customer, your first paid customer, perhaps?
Yeah. So I will be honest, when we started in the beginning, it was, as you say, end of, honestly, it was the end. I will say
Mhm.
December, it's when we really like, I got the money, I think it's September, October, and really
Got it.
started the company on December. It actually
Mhm.
was really in the end of 2017. I think that 6 months later, we basically open source Glue. And I honestly, I did not look for making. I was trying to look noise and get market share
Right.
in the community way more than looking for customers. After so we opened after 6 months. After 8 months, a lot of this bet that I made, sometimes you're making bet and it's funny, all of them came true. So I'm like, whoa. So what happened is that we partnered with Ashiko and they wanted
Mhm.
to build their own service mesh, but they needed help with Envoy. So we built the Envoy part for them and we partnered there and they told their key. And then I partnered with Google, with Docker, and they
Mhm.
basically put me on. Back then, they were the biggest conference and the most interesting
Right.
conference in the company. And they basically put me on the keynotes to talk to, I think it was like 8K people. So I
Nice.
was really good experience and
Right.
so on. And the product went well. And we got a lot of respect, even from the SEO guys from Google. And it was clear that we know what we're doing. And for Matt Klein, who was the founder of, of Envoy. So we got a lot of kind of people look at us and those guys know what they're doing. And I think it's really quickly with the point that also VC understood that we know what we're doing. And then we immediately got a renown from like, hey, we want to give you more money. We weren't looking. I will be honest. Like back then we were, as I said, I took $3 million. I think maybe we were 6 people, right? I was even sitting in actually CRV. Basically, I knew someone there, so he gave me to sit in their office. The company was actually sitting in the CRV office in Boston, even though we were not invested by them. Like, they just gave us a room, 2 rooms. And we basically were sitting there, so I didn't need to pay for that even. So honestly, I had most of the money still in the bank. I didn't spend a lot of those. And then I got like offers that was very hard to actually
Right.
say no to. And I said, why not? So I basically took, I think it was like what, $12 million or something like that. And again, I'm talking to you, we had just an open source project. We were 6 people. That was the company. And then when we said, I said, okay, then, and then the board, then we just started a board. We didn't have a board before that. So they basically asked me, okay, how much money are you going to make? And I said, you want me to make money? I don't know how much you want. And they said, I don't know, 2.5 million. I said, okay, then. And that's basically how we started, right? So then I said, okay, maybe I'd rather get a customer. And then I
Right.
basically, but quickly, I'm talking to you about, I don't know, months after I already have, yeah. So it was really, when I understood that's when I needed to do it, was very
Right.
quickly. And this year we did way more than number that we should have do. And the year later, we basically did multiply by almost 7, that
Nice,
number.
nice.
Yeah.
And you obviously had gotten this feedback only like a year ago that, oh, you need a business partner, don't have sales experience. You're going to be like selling software to some of the biggest, slowest moving companies in the world. What was your experience kind of being in those meetings and what was your approach? Obviously, you already knew how these companies work. You have spent time at a big one like EMC. Did you like go do, okay, founder selling, find a mentor, or what was your process of
And
learning how to navigate that part of the process?
So honestly, even to the day, I can say that I don't have a coach and I don't have a mentor. It's pretty crazy. I know that a lot of founders are using it, and maybe I should, but I just ever. I would say that. So in our market, definitely, which is a market that open source and there's a lot of excitement. A lot of the sellers anyway down up, they
Right.
bringing us. So that's what we did. Right, we basically and engineering. I don't know how to talk to engineering. They are me. Like we are. So in that point, it wasn't too hard for us. Actually, it was
Right.
very good. We started with engineers, or we started with the director level kind of thing, right? but we didn't go all the way to the CIO. And then what happened? They just brought us. Like we won POCs that we did on Slacks, and then they went and got us the package, and then we just needed to go. So it was very easy. And then maybe I will need to talk to the executive. But again, even that, usually there's some info. They know what the problem or the technical, more technical, just was like very easy in that terms. So I felt that wasn't a big problem to sell on myself. I have to say it was very easy. But even today, I know how to sell. I don't know. And I always knew I'm born like this. I don't think that it's something that I needed to learn. Um, but you are learning a lot of stuff. There's no question about it, right? If I'm looking at it right now today, even simple stuff like I didn't think how salespeople think. So I hire and I try to be like a lot of that go to market side is stuff that I needed to learn. But do the first sales, honestly, usually is done by the founder anyway. We know the space very well. We usually people very technical. So it wasn't an issue at all.
Right.
Honestly, yeah.
How do you think about what were the hardest parts of your early founder CEO journey for you? What were the parts that didn't come naturally? You had to figure out how to do something differently from your intuition. Was there anything like that?
I learned a lot of stuff that were very important during the processes. I'm trying to figure out hard stuff. Like, for instance, uh, one thing that was very helpful for me is to let go the first person that I didn't want.
Hmm.
That was, I remember myself, it was specifically one of my best friends, which was even harder,
Right.
but I had to do it. It was clear that they will be miserable and I will be miserable. So I think that's one thing that was very tough. So I remember that because I was like, well, even the beginning was very painful. And I'm trying to figure out the other thing that I would say, and by the way, before I let him go, I make sure that he will have it. I talked to my friends to make sure that he will take him back. So like, I took care of him, but it was tough. Well, I mean, I will be honest with you. Usually, all this stuff was relatively native. I think that one of the things that was hard, as I said, is to understand how salespeople think.
Hmm.
Definitely a good one. They really think about their salary in a different way than
Right.
mid-engineer.
Right.
I think that was one thing. And in generally, what I learned is how to motivate people. And in the beginning of this process, I remember myself saying, okay, that's very easy. I'm going to look at you and say,
Right.
and I know that you probably want what I want. So I
Right.
basically was looking at you, I said, oh, probably what will motivate you is to win. But what I discovered is not everybody is being motivated in the same way. So it took me a lot of time, but I think I've become very good with this to understand that
Right.
people are different and you need to try to motivate with different stuff. So I had two people, right? One of them is a person, I'm a person that just want to win. That's what I
Right.
want in my life. I don't care about anything else, not about money or any other titles and stuff.
Right.
I just want to win. I want to be the best. That's what I want to do. And that's how I try to push it in reads. And one of the first person to work with me, and again, my people that join, they're like family to me today. And one of those person, he was the person that was bullied when he was young. So he was always like, I wanted to do this. I want to win. You want to win in a different way. You wanted to revenge. And I remember just to motivate, and it was more like, said, we're going to crush Google or something like that. It's, oh, but them, they didn't think that I'm good, and I'm sure them. And then there was,
Prove them wrong.
yeah, exactly. That was motivating. And then there was the other one who basically, honestly, I said to him, we're going to show them. And he like, we're going to win. And I said to him, what is interesting to me, to you? And he said, money. And I said to him, they are taking your money. You're Google is taking your money. You know, that's basically you motivated them differently and you learn how to do this. And honestly, then you're creating this thing that you all learn in one direction and you're very united and very aligned and you just do the best you can to win. And I think that's something that I learned a lot. And again, it took me time to understand. Made a lot of
Yeah,
mistakes.
no, that's very well said. I think what I have often seen is that when you, especially when you start and you have product market fit and then you start hiring, right? You assume that like everyone you hire is going to just grow the culture you already have. And it's a very clear culture to you as a founder because you've hired all the people that you understand really well and work like you. They are very self motivated. They all want the same thing.
Right.
But then when you have PMF, it's actually a huge advantage to be able to hire talented people who have very different motivations. You can scale your company faster if you're able to hire very different types of people and figure out how to motivate them, how to make them a part of a more diverse, vibrant culture. right? But it's a hard thing for founders to do, to be able to make that sudden change of, okay, I'm
Yes.
going to go from being just a founder to learning how to be more of an executive and motivate very
Yeah.
different types of people. It's a very hard shift to do because you're almost trying to behave like a different person than who you were 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that if I'm looking at the company for the first, I think, what, 2, 3 years before we got the $1 billion valuation, honestly, that wasn't hard. I will be honest. First of all, I was hiring all the people. I worked
Right,
hard, but we had a
right,
blast. There weren't a lot of challenges. I didn't feel that they like, oh my God, I'm over my head. I knew what I'm doing. Everything was good.
right,
I think where the challenges is coming, and it's maybe not relevant to this, but I think it's where we needed to scale. And
right,
suddenly, it's not like I hired those people. Suddenly, someone else hiring those people. And
right,
suddenly, I don't even know all those people in the company. And the
right,
other thing is that it's also you it if before that a lot of the data that came to me was coming from I'm talking to everybody. So either I'm selling, or even if I'm not selling, I'm hearing it from Christian or hearing it from Matt. Suddenly, I don't cannot talk to everybody. So suddenly I got to the point that, for instance, it was hard to sell. And I'm saying, why it's hard to sell? I know I can sell it. So why are
right,
they having about that? And I
right,
don't know because I don't have visibility to this. So again,
right.
I think that I think where it become harder, but also learn, you're adjusting, you're learning, you understand how to do it. So it's always learning and always change, and your role always change.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but it's always
Um,
new challenge. So I guess it's interesting.
and maybe I'll have a question more about this more at scale part of the solo journey that you are at today. How do you balance the open source community building, traditional marketing? Like, how would you describe your strategy for kind of developer marketing right now, which includes your open source community?
Yeah. So honestly, even here, I will say that it was interesting. When I started, I really genuinely believed that I'm going to open a damn good project. I know we are very solid in writing code. It will be very good in terms of market fit and very easy to use. And people just will use it and everybody will adopt it and it will be
Right,
fantastic. And oh boy, I was wrong. I discovered so much stuff. I discovered stuff like, for instance, when I was in EMC, everybody wanted to interview me. But when you're in a small startup, the same people that were so nice to you totally ignoring you right now.
right.
Or actually, you will discover that actually the big companies sometimes just going to steal your code and put it in their stuff to invite and
Mm,
they very better because they have a brand name that is better. And you discover so many stuff. Like, honestly, I feel that after 3 years, I was like, again, I don't want to make anybody dismotivated, but I was like in shock. I thought that I went to EMC and learned politics, how to be careful. But I'm not a politician. But how to be careful from politics, that would be enough. Oh boy, I was wrong. I came to the open source community, and it's honestly behind the scenes nothing like you think. And I think it was a big shock to me, like a very big shock to me. And I think it got to the point that in one point, I think after three, I was very successful. Like the company was doing a lot of good stuff, but I was so that's the word that I really was said that this is the reality. I'm the person who always said, it's not fair and take care of it. And basically, this is like, it was like exploding in my face. Whoa, it's not what I was thinking. So I think that was a tough spot. So definitely I needed, as I said to you. So to your question about how to do this is that in that point, I felt that I would come the opposite, which is like, I need to protect myself. Where am I putting the,
mm,
but I think that during the years, I learned that I understand right now. And I think the balancing relatively is simple. I think that you're putting a very good open source project that is usually covering a lot of the stuff that people want,
right,
but not the enterprise product. In that way, everything else, because you don't looking to make money from the person that's running there and 10 people
right,
team. This is not what we're looking for. We want them to be part of the community, give us feedback, help
right,
contributing, but we don't want them to pay us. When you want to make the money is more on the big enterprise customer. And if that's what you want, build the feature that's very relevant to them as as an open core. So basically coming on top of it. So that's basically what we did. And since then, of course, just FYI, we started with the gateway, but it was clear that's not where we were heading. And we
right,
moved to the
right.
service mesh. So we have two market that we attacking in both of them makes me big. And beyond a lot. It was a lot. Like honestly, it's a lot of fun.
Right.
A lot
And
of
I think
challenge and a lot of fun.
you did an exceptional job in really understanding the market timing and making sure that we're focusing on the right thing, that there was a ready market for at the right time. And there are so many good ideas that die because the timing is not right. So,
Yeah.
amazing judgment there.
No,
Hey,
and also, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I just wanted to say that, as I said, we did when we started in the gateway, immediately we said, okay, we're not going to work on service mesh, but we're at least going to
Right,
associate ourselves with the service mesh. So we open
right,
source project that also was very successful. So it was, we always knew that we would go to that direction. We just
right,
did it right by bringing the revenue. And then when the revenue was
right.
relevant here, now we could have cost it. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Sort of a very strong land and expand strategy.
Yes.
Um, Maybe to wrap this up, I'm curious, what would be your advice to founders starting out today in open source infrastructure, given everything today compared to, say, 5 or 6 years ago? What would be
Yeah.
your advice to founders in open source infra? We are working with several, for example, open source infra founders working on new AI tooling. That's the big new markets category opening up. What would be your advice for folks like that?
So I can say what everybody is saying when you ask them, just don't. But I would say that, listen, if you ask me after the first 3 years, and I said the first 3 years of solo was so smooth, like it was easy and fun and excited, I will tell you, like, yeah, sure, started. It will be a lot of fun and very rewarding. Even if you will fail, you at least will gain enough stuff that you will be able to find a better job. I will say right now that honestly, if you're looking at the world, honestly, like in the last, like I'm trying to figure out as a startup I needed to overcome, right? And the
Right,
overcome is not this; it's the overcome is COVID. The
right,
overcome is that after it, all the engineering decided to leave because people couldn't needed to
right,
change something because they couldn't change anything else because of COVID.
right,
And then the price, in order to hire an engineer, you needed to pay them like 200K. And then the VC market went crazy and basically it started to gain like crazy amount of people. So if I got valuation by giving it, I don't know, 100K, suddenly just like my competitor getting it at 500K, right? And have
right,
more money
right,
to spend. And
right,
then after it was the SVB problem that we had. And I remember one day, like suddenly $130 million gone from my bank. And I'm like, oh
right,
my shit, right? And that's that. And then what was that? There was a recession. And now is a war. It's like always something. There is no 1 minute. So I would say that from looking at one, I remember asking one of my VC, Satish from Redpoint, who is amazing and was a founder before, successful founder. And I remember I asked him and I said to him, did you also need to do all of this stuff? And honestly, no. Like the one wasn't that crazy back then.
right.
So I will say that it's tough, it's hard, it's harder than it look. It makes it stronger, but it is harder than it look. And in one point, you even will ask yourself if this is something that you even need to do. It makes sense. But again, I only think that this is because it was ridiculously hard 3 years on the ward. It's not related. Like I said, in the first 3 years, piece of cake. We had a blast. And right now, it's not that I'm not enjoying it, but it's tougher. It's always tough. Everything is tough. We were smart to make right decision, take the money when we needed that. But my point is that it's tough. Just honestly.
Right. Yeah, you want to do it despite that, not believe that it will be easy. You want to be a founder despite all of the challenges that come and
It's like
yeah,
you can tell it's like people like woman getting pregnant and then they deliver. It's like the worst thing ever, but then they still doing it again, right? And you answer say, "What you forgot all about it?" I think it's startup is not that different than this, honestly. It's nuts to open a company. It is. It's draining. It's you're losing your family. It's very hard. And I got that honestly when I was a young. That's what I heard. And I'm not even talking about the fact that I was lucky to succeed, but there was a lot of people that started with me and miserably failed, but make the same effort. I don't know. I'm very happy I'm doing it. Don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm learning. I'm developing. This is who I am. I don't
you're
think I could
winning.
have do
You're
something
winning.
else. Exactly. I don't think I couldn't do, but it's definitely not for everybody, and it's definitely not as easy as it looks. That's all I wanted to say. It's a lot of people problem, way more than technology problem.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Edith. I
Thing.
absolutely loved this conversation and learned so much from it. I think my big takeaway is sometimes you break all the rules. Like as a founder, you cannot really follow rules. You have to go where your conviction leads you and be enough of a student of the market to have great judgment, but then lead with your conviction. And it was really great having
Exactly.
this chat with you and learning more about solo. Thank you for coming on the Field Guide.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Startup Field Guide with Sandhya, an Unusual Ventures podcast. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you liked what you heard, please rate our show and help us reach more aspiring founders with lessons on how to find product market fit. Thanks for listening. Until next time.